Hi, welcome to our Road to Regroup webinar today. We are going to be talking about moving forward in a digital new world and what does it look like as in terms of community. So thanks for joining us so much today. We appreciate it. And we have all been in this time of just kind of figuring out a new normal. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as we kind of get started, what we would love is for you, if you guys could use the chat feature and just share a little bit, maybe where you're from, your church name. We would just love to kind of see who is on with us today. So that would be great. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A feature as well. And we'll do questions either as we go, or we'll save some time at the end and do them there. So thank you for using that feature too, because that'll just help us make it better for you. Well, today I'll introduce myself first, and then I'd like to introduce my friends that are here with me. My name is Tracy Atfield, and I'm on the North Point Partner team, and I'm the Adult Ministries Consultant. And so grateful to be here with you. And I've got my friends Bo and Alicia with us today. So Bo, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey, everybody. Tracy, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but this is so fun. People coming in from Florida and Texas and New York and Canada and California and Lincoln, Nebraska. This is awesome. My name's Bo. I'm the Adult Ministries Director at Buckhead Church, which is our in-town campus. And I'll say a little bit more about that, but so excited to get to be here with you all together. Adult ministry environments, what that means is if somebody's not growing spiritually in our church, as my boss, Clay Scroggins, has said, that's my fault. So we work with all of our amazing small group leaders.
No pressure.
And create environments for people to be able to connect authentically and grow spiritually.
And my name's Alicia Dix. I work at our Woodstock City Church location, and I recently transitioned to a new role. I was formerly the director of our community groups team, and I just recently transitioned to associate director of adult engagement. So we have kind of separated into two buckets: family engagement and adult engagement. So all of our ministries that work with our adult teams, that falls in adult engagement. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today. And like Bo pointed out, all of the different locations, this is just really fun. And I'm encouraged that we can gather together and utilize technology in a fun new way. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I love in the comments, Bo, you went to college with Tim Gardner.
Tim Gardner.
What a small world.
So fun. And I used to work at Westgate Chapel. Hey, Mike Judge. I don't know if you remember me, but good to see you.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Well, I like how Alicia said, this technology just brings us all together. So super fun to be with y'all today. But let's just kind of jump in what we're going to be talking about. And I know you guys are all, this, your church is experiencing this of we had kind of what we thought was normal. And now that normal is really an old normal. It was like pre-coronavirus. And so now we've adjusted to this new normal, and we're honestly still figuring that out. And then we're going to soon be in a new normal. That's going to be after coronavirus, what are we going to take from this experience? So that's really what we're going to be talking kind of about, those three things, but mostly about what could it look like going forward for us in terms of groups. And so, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like around here, we hear all the time of the word flexible, the word pivot, adapting. I mean, those are things that we are doing. I know recently I had a partner of one of our partner churches who said, hey, my flexibility muscle is just worn out. And I think we could probably all identify with that a little bit. So, but as we get started, Bo, would you mind just kind of sharing a little bit about what is North Point's old model? Because everybody has an old model, but share a little bit about ours.
Well, as Andy has said about a different topic, our old model, we didn't think was all that old. It's just that it's like that thing when you get a smartphone and you had your old smartphone and it was your smartphone until you got a new one, and then your former one all of a sudden became old. So basically our model is built around creating circles for adults to be able to grow. And that includes college students. Actually, we provide circles for really every age group. Starting in kindergarten, you get placed with a small group leader. Because we believe spiritual growth happens in community. It happens when you're able to look at each other. You can't practice 1 Corinthians 13 by staring at the back of somebody's head in a row. You have to get in a circle. And so we put adults together in small groups. And we once you're in a small group, it's a closed group is the term that we use, which people will add folks to those groups, every couple a couple times a year, but really that's a group that's committing to journey together anywhere from 9 to 12 to 24 months. And then we have kind of unique groups based on specific seasons. So starting point is as a group for somebody who's exploring faith. And then we might do short-term groups for people around parenting content or marriage content or different environments like that. So I don't know if that's a good summary of the old model. It probably goes without saying, we really encouraged those groups to meet physically. We've seen that groups really thrive. I'll get into this maybe a little bit more later, but we did this survey of 1,000 people who'd been in groups, and some of the folks chose not to come back to group and some of them did. Well, the 3 most common reasons people said they came back to group is they were able to indicate that their group laughed together, prayed together, and ate together. Well, you can still pray together via this way, but there was so much about the group experience that was about being in the same room, sitting together, experiencing life together. So that was kind of probably like a lot of you, our old normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how about new normal? What does that look like today? Bo, like, what are you guys doing now?
Well, probably like everybody at first, we kind of thought about this like it was a snow day, and where you're just kind of trying to find a way to help groups be able to pivot immediately. And then we made a decision as a church that, well, we're going to actually put a date on the calendar and say, it's going to be a while before we're all back together. So we need a more long-term strategy. And Alicia, I thought that you had really, really helpful clarity that you provided to your leaders and to your team about, all right, we know that we can't encourage people to be in the same room. Here's what we're going to prioritize. Here's kind of what's first. Tracy, am I allowed to do that? Can I pivot to say, Alicia, you're smart?
We are pivoting every single day. So yes, we can pivot.
Yeah. When we first found out that we would not be meeting as a church, and, our senior pastor and management team, they said, hey, we're canceling for 3 weeks right out the gate, which actually helped us with our groups to be able to encourage them and empower them to meet and not take time off. So we wanted them to get started as soon as possible to connect with each other and really just to cast vision why it was important. We talk about as a church that we are a church of groups, not a church with groups. And we immediately felt like this was the season where a church of groups can really be the hands and feet of Jesus in this time and connect with each other in a time of uncertainty. And we didn't know that, 6 weeks later, we would still be sitting here trying to figure out how to do this. But really to vision cast right out the gate, we found out on Thursday, we communicated to our leaders by the next morning and just empowered them to go ahead and start meeting digitally. We received a little bit of resistance at first. Some people felt like, no, we're only going to be out for 3 weeks. We'll just wait until we get back, not really comfortable with technology. And so as best we could, we wanted to encourage them to go ahead and get over the hurdle of embracing technology, if only for 3 weeks. That would be best case scenario. And so we wanted to help them meet and also trying to stay just barely ahead of them, trying to anticipate their needs 1 week at a time. None of us have done this before. We were very clear that, hey, we're trying to figure this out just like you are. And so if we can stay just slightly ahead and encouraging them to reach out to us to share what is helpful for them in this season, even though we're all trying to figure this out day to day. So equipping them with what to be talking about with their group, to pivot at the beginning. You may have been in the midst of a study, and in this new normal that we've now found ourselves in, maybe we just need to connect, and that's it, and kind of put the study aside. And then as people grow accustomed to it, helping leaders flex and know, okay, based on what I'm experiencing in my group, now it's time to kind of move forward. So I hope that helps just where we started and where we initially started thinking with our churches.
I really resonate with a lot of that, Alicia. You had said this to me before, that the goal is to help group leaders win. And I don't care what age you are or how I'm on Zoom calls every week already, but leading community on Zoom is so different. It takes a different skill set. So it feels like our teams, what we're just trying to do is help group members win right now, trying to help group leaders feel like, okay, I know what to do when my group gets on here. And
that's right. It was resetting expectations for what a positive group experience is, and not expecting that we're going to hop on and we're going to spend 2 hours together on a Zoom call. For that first one, for a lot of our leaders, they're using free accounts where it's 40 minutes. That's your max, So how do we adjust our group time together if we only have 40 minutes to meet? So figuring those things out together with our leaders to help them feel like this is needed and we're successful right now.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is giving leaders freedom to say, you don't have to meet for 2 hours and you don't have to do a study. And you don't have to, you know what I mean? So just giving them that freedom is like, oh, well, I can do that, So yeah, that's great. Well, good. Well, I know some of you guys listening, you might have been already doing digital groups. For us, we were a little bit resistant with most of our community groups to do digital. We did have some through different parts of North Point, but for the most part, we're like, no, it's still better to meet in person and all of that. So we were a little hesitant. So this has kind of forced us into something that we didn't necessarily want for ourselves, which you might be in that same boat. I don't know. Or you might be ahead of us in all of this. So there's some things that we've started and things that we've stopped, and some of the things that we stopped that we really liked. And so, Bo, would you share with some of the things that we kind of miss from being together in person?
Yeah, I alluded to this earlier, and sorry, my internet kicked me off. Hopefully that only happens once. What I missed about being with my community group is, there's just a lot of things you take for granted about sitting next to somebody, about verbal cues as a leader. There's things that you miss of being able to kind of feel the room. You can't do any of that on Zoom where it's so different. But specifically, we've seen how groups really connect when they're able to eat together, when they're able to serve together, when they're able to laugh together. And, it hasn't been a season generally of as much laughter to begin with. And then, of course, you're not having snacks together. You're, like Alicia said, you're really meeting for an hour. Most of our groups, I think we've tried to just encourage them how to do just check-in. Check-in can take an hour easily. 2 quick ideas about that, actually. I think sometimes we just have to equip leaders to say, it's okay if all you do is highs and lows or lemons and lemonades or whatever you want to call it.
Give us a number.
Pick a number, scale of 1 to 5. Well, with somebody, I was on a Zoom call today, actually, somebody did this. They said, rename yourself in Zoom, if you're using Zoom. Rename yourself with the primary emotion you felt in the last week. Well, it took an hour. Then being able to just process and diagnose all of those feelings, or just have somebody go around the room and say, what's something that you've lost in this season? What's something that you're grieving in this season? Boom, you've got an hour of a Zoom call that you felt like a win under your belt. And you don't have to have that thing as a leader where, oh no, everybody didn't read chapters 4 and 5 of The Meaning of Marriage. Like they already aren't reading they didn't read 2 or 3 either. And now as a leader, you're trying to keep the conversation going. Just make it simple, help them win. And yeah, you can maybe watch a 4 or 5 minute YouTube video together and share your screen and do all that. But right now, in this season of isolation, people just need connection. I don't know if that answers your question on some of the things we've been thinking about.
Yeah. And some just for groups, like you said, there's just some things that we miss out on being in together, but there's also some positives that have come from this. So what have you seen? What are some of the positives that you've seen come from the digital groups? Well, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
I think one thing that's been so positive is people can do it. I think there were some folks who were hesitant at first, but almost all of our groups have transitioned to meeting online. And I think what amazing learning. I think especially for couples who have young kids or single parents who it's hard to find a babysitter, or if some of you are in rural areas and your people are spread out and they've got to drive 25 or 45 minutes to get to group. Man, I think we've learned that this is a really powerful and effective way to be able to connect with people even once we're done with this season. I think another positive, for me, it's so funny to talk about this. I even feel weird saying this as a positive, but one of our goals for groups is that people would be authentic, that they would bring their real self, that they wouldn't feel like this is Sunday school, but that they would bring all of who they are. Well, like Andy talked about in his message on Sunday, pain is like a megaphone. God speaks through our pain, and it really helps people be able to be more authentic because everybody's lost something. Everybody's going through something that they're grieving, and it creates a new sense of camaraderie and community. And that's what Jesus predicted, is that this is the world, the way the world would know we're his followers, is the way we love each other in these seasons. So I think there's been a lot of cool stories of groups rallying together through this season. Alicia, how about you? What have you seen that's been positive?
You mentioned this earlier. We were really apprehensive about doing digital groups. We put a lot of emphasis on the importance of meeting together. So at the very beginning, just recognizing that there are challenges, and we had some really apprehensive leaders. I alluded to that earlier, but even the groups that were most apprehensive have found that once they've gotten used to the technology, they're enjoying meeting together. So just knowing that now this is possible as an option, that's really encouraging. Again, we mentioned the first couple of meetings, just focusing on connection and being relational and asking how we can be praying for each other this week. And it's been surprising how quickly groups have gotten accustomed to the digital environment. So I'm really excited about how this forced innovation has kind of expanded our view of what's possible with groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love how in the chat, several of you guys have been doing digital groups for a while or just started with all of this too. So, I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat here. But one question that we had come in, and I think we're wrestling with this, trying to figure it out. Andy asked a question from New Point Community Church of how do you engage people who are not currently a part of groups? Any unique approaches that we have taken? So what have we kind of looked at or learned from, good or bad, about engaging people who aren't in groups yet?
Yeah. Can I jump in there?
Sure.
So 2 things I feel like that have gone well and one thing that has not gone well. We just launched some digital short-term groups, and we launched like 17 of them. So we are trying lots of different things to see what is going to work. And specifically one thing that's really working right now is felt need content. So putting out a 4-week group there about parenting. Actually, the group that's had the most interest is around kind of spiritual growth and what does it look like to own my own growth in this season. What's not worked is just a general community type group. It's been really hard, especially for men, to be able to start relationships this way. And we've tried launching a few kind of marriage focused groups and a few men's groups. Starting relationships has been really, really hard for men. And as a man, I can resonate with that. I think for my men's group, the best thing I can do is get them out shoulder to shoulder and instead of, being face to face, because there's something about that common activity. Another thing that's been really cool for us that we've tried, Sarah, I see you on the chat also. I know their church is doing this, just to create Facebook Live prayer environments. And so we're doing that as a church. We literally do it every day of the week at noon. And, we kind of had a trickle at first of people, and then just the momentum of continuing to do it has really been a cool platform for people to be connected. And then we've done that specific to different ministry environments. So our men's leaders have a prayer gathering they do on Wednesdays. Our Upstreet, which is elementary school volunteers, they all did something on Sunday afternoon where they got together and everybody just talked about the message. And they already have something in common, but for people who don't have a group to get to discuss the message, they had like 17 volunteers show up and they talked for almost 2 hours, that they just need a place to be able to connect. Well, they had a built-in kind of group and they just said, well, let's just get all those people together and get to talk about the message. So there's been some really cool things there. But again, I think it's whether it's been specific content or a community that kind of already existed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we tried something actually this past Sunday, and I think Lynn mentioned this as well. Lynn Banks said they tried open groups. We tried a drop-in talk about the message with zero commitment. Hey, just pop on after you watch it. We're going to do this at 10, 12, and 8 p.m. And we had hardly any show up. So, hey, we learned that.
Try it though.
That's right. I mean,
awesome.
We failed fast, guys. It was low risk, and we were able to figure out how to get Zoom and get Zoom links on our website, and we promoted it, and no one came. So back to the drawing board. So just a broad, general, hey, come connect with other people from our church, that didn't do it. So the felt need, that's next on our agenda to give a try, Bo. So,
well, and I mean, one, Alicia, I love that you guys, as you said, we failed fast. And during this season, I feel like we have an opportunity to be more nimble than we normally are. It's like, try it, and we actually get pretty quick results versus when we plan a big event and we have to wait to kind of see what's going to happen. So one, I love that of, hey, we can try something and figure it out and not be afraid to fail if it doesn't work, and we'll pivot the next week, you know? So we've gotten so good at that. But Bo, for the felt need groups that you guys are doing, one of the questions that came in was kind of what are some of the topics that you guys are doing? I know you mentioned some starting point digital groups. What else are you guys doing?
Well, there's starting point digital group, and then there's almost like what you might, for those of you who are familiar with this language, like starting point almost 2.0. So it's not the starting point content, but it's that same idea of what does it look like to explore faith. And then again, we tried some sermon discussion type questions, and this is the same sort of pattern that happens all the time. Our women's spots filled up immediately, and the men kind of barely trickled in. But content around parenting, content around marriage, content around finances. Boy, our financial groups have been, I mean, they're so timely right now. Two other things that we're just trying, and we're going to announce this to our church on Sunday, so you're hearing it before Buckhead Church is hearing it. But we're offering one-on-one mentoring around marriage and one-on-one mentoring around finances. And we just took some of our volunteers who said, I've got extra time and I'd love to help. And we created kind of a conversation guide for them. And then at the end of Clay's message on Sunday, we're going to say, hey, if you're interested in having a conversation with somebody about this, we're going to create some mentoring opportunities one-on-one there. And I don't know if it will work. I don't know if we'll have 50 people or 1,500 people, but let's try some stuff. And if we have to pivot our approach, then I have to put a quarter in the jar every time I say pivot from now on.
That's right. That's the new buzzword.
Then let's just learn and see what people need and respond to their unique needs, you know?
Yeah, we're starting the financial mentoring as well, so the one-on-one. And we are also going to try supporting people who are out of work and figuring out how we can do that digitally, creating a gathering of people, and then hopefully breaking them off into groups where you kind of do an expert speaker who they feel like, okay, this was really helpful, and then break out in Zoom rooms so that they can have conversations around the content. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Well, good. That's awesome. For the financial plans, what curriculum are you using on that?
Oh, good. So we use our MoneyWise curriculum. If you're not familiar with MoneyWise, it's very similar to Financial Peace University. So that's what our MoneyWise groups are based on, but our individual kind of money coaching sessions still take those basic concepts of, do you have a budget? How do we help you take a step? It's almost like triage, but again, a money conversation one time is pretty easy to have because it's like, hey, give, save, live. What's the need? Where do I need to direct you to a next step?
Okay. So similar to FPU, Financial Peace University of Dave Ramsey, that kind of a thing, and using that online. Okay, good. And there was also a couple of questions around starting point. And starting point is a kind of a small group for people who are exploring faith, who are either new to church, they're don't have faith, don't have a relationship with Jesus yet, and they're just checking it out. They're curious, or maybe they're returning to church. So that is a small group that meets for 8 weeks. We do have some campuses and a lot of our partner churches who are also experimenting with kind of doing it 4 weeks instead of 8. And so that's an interesting thing that people are trying. Because I know there was a specific question on, are we shortening it? And so, yes, mostly 4 weeks. Some churches are doing 5 weeks, and but it just kind of depends. So there's some, we're looking at, hey, what's the best thing to do with Starting Point there. And I know in the chat there's also some information about MoneyWise and about Starting Point links if you guys want to check that out. But real quick, let's kind of jump down to some of the questions that we've got from Dan of people are being communicated with through email and social media much more than they were pre-COVID-19. I feel like I'm breaking some of my own communication rules. Are you experiencing stronger or weaker communication in this season, and why? And I don't know about y'all, but I feel like our communication has changed a lot. Like people are communicating with us much more through digital means, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and it's a reciprocal kind of communication that is going digital. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on that.
So we're trying to figure this out. On one hand, the feedback we've gotten from volunteers is they do not feel bombarded by the information they're receiving from the church, which is good to know. But it is hard to break through the filters. So we will send multiple emails we did a Facebook Live event where we did a night of worship type experience with our lead pastor and some of our worship leaders. And it was fantastic, but some of our most connected people didn't realize that it was happening. And we sent a couple of emails. We did social media pushes beforehand. And we're just trying to figure out, people are being bombarded with email from other organizations as well. I remember when COVID-19 first started, and every single day we were getting emails from every single list that I was on about what their approach was to keep us safe. And so the good news is they want to hear from us. There's value in what the church has to say in this season. So that's great. But we have not cracked the code on this. So if anybody has figured out a way to communicate with their church congregation, I would love to talk to you. What have you guys experienced, Bo?
Yeah, we're all trying to figure this out. So let me speak to communication from the church and then communication as a leader, if I can. So communication from the church, I do think in crisis, people don't want to feel underinformed. If you're overinforming them, the more the better. I mean, Donald Miller has taught so many of us the value of having a guide and a plan. And so positioning yourself to say, hey, you're out there doing it. Here's our plan for how we're responding. I think it's just really powerful. So we've created a weekly 3 email that just says, hey, here's 3 things. And y'all, it's going to change. When the day we open church is going to change, our approach to kids is going to change. We don't have all of that figured out, but we can celebrate. We just bought 26,000 surgical masks that we're going to celebrate giving to a local hospital. And there's other, this MoneyWise stuff that we're doing. There's other cool things that we can share. And I think we have heard so much gratitude from our folks who feel like they're in the know. So then I look in the mirror as a leader in our church staff and think, gosh, I need to just keep reminding my team of what's most important. What's the most important thing that we do, and then what's most important right now. And Patrick Lencioni talks about this in his new book, that leaders, we kind of feel embarrassed when we keep saying the same thing over and over and over. But people want to know if they're winning. They want to know if they're doing their role. They want to know if they're doing what's most important. So we just keep communicating that. And then I think about my role as a small group leader. When you're in this setting, whether it's Zoom or it's Skype or it's FaceTime or it's Google Hangouts, you have to do so much more facilitating. You have to do what Tracy's doing. Hey, Bo, what do you think? Alicia, what do you think? John, what do you think? Whatever it is. And I think that same thing is true for us when we're separated, that we have to do a lot more listening. We have to do a lot more intentional listening, because we're not just walking by people's cubicles. We're not meeting with people for lunch. And so we just have to pick up the phone once or twice a day to talk to a leader, to talk to people, to just say, what are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And make sure communication's coming back towards us too.
I noticed Jay's commented, or was it, let's see, I lost it. I just saw it, but leveraging Facebook groups, that's been really helpful. So we've got Facebook groups for our leaders. And so communicating with them, both so that they can communicate with each other and then for us to be able to share important information. Our emails go out at expected times, the same time every week. So they get 2 emails from our church. That's a broad email from our lead pastor that goes out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Communication to group leaders goes out on Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. So we have been able to tell them over the weeks, hey, be looking for this. If you don't receive it, then let us know. Sometimes we get blocked by filters. So them being able to expect it, we have found has been really helpful in communication.
Yeah, I love that idea of the consistency that you're providing for people in the church and for the leaders. So that is wonderful to get to do that, because then they know, hey, they're thinking about me, they care about me, and they have a plan for me. Just like Bo said, of kind of the story brand stuff of a guide and a plan. So that's awesome. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit to, okay, so we kind of have this new normal now that we're all working in, and it sounds like from the chat we're not alone in some of the frustrations and some of the wins that we're experiencing, so we're all kind of in this together for sure. But what about going forward? What if you could take what do you want to take forward from this experience? And then we'll talk about what would we want to leave behind from this experience. So Bo, why don't you start us out?
I love y'all. It's so fun to see you all engaging, and I feel so encouraged with all of your comments and y'all around the country doing this. Really good work. Can I just real quick answer Robbie's question? Robbie Freeman is asking, what about recruiting new leaders? Robbie, we're right there with you, because it feels so odd as people are juggling homeschool and their work and all that we still need volunteers. So I think there's areas in your church that likely those volunteers feel underutilized. I think about guest services, some folks in family ministry, preschool, high school, et cetera, college maybe, that you could reach out to some of those people. And I'm of the mindset right now that people cannot commit to something a year long. They don't know what they're going to be doing in August, but they might be able to say yes to 4 weeks of something, to a 1-hour mentoring call. But recruiting is always such a challenge. So I really resonate with that. And we're wrestling with all of this for when we would typically launch groups in the fall. What does it look like for us? And what can we recruit for? What will be a normal group experience? Some of you asked about, well, what about when we can meet back together? Some people won't want to. What do we do about all that? Well, we're right there wrestling with those same questions. My hunch is to err on the side of safety and to err on the side of people feeling like they're welcome and included. So when this first started, we said, if anybody in your group feels uncomfortable meeting, you should meet via Zoom, and you should just kind of have that be your new normal. But that was for our specific context. Now, Tracy, I've gone off on that tangent and I didn't answer your question, and I don't remember what your question was.
Question was, which, hey, that was all great. So thanks for sharing that. But just that idea, what do we want to carry forward from this new normal into like the new normal? So one, comfort level for our group members. So you did answer it, kind of.
I'll steal something I heard from Cheryl Batchelder this week, who was the CEO of Popeyes for a long time. She's an incredible leader. And she really encouraged us about the value of listening to people in this season, because I know what my family needs right now. I don't even know what my family's going to need in August. And so we have created, kind of assigned people to, of course, be checking in with your leaders. But we want to create a wave of listening, of going and listening to people to say, what do they want? And here's one way that I think about that. As we're listening to our volunteers, as we're listening to our attendees, as we're listening to our staff, what do we not hear them miss? As they're talking about the things that they do miss, what are they not talking about missing? That gives us a little bit of an idea of some things that maybe we were doing that we don't need to be doing anymore. For example, I don't miss my commute. Okay, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't miss my commute. I don't know what that looks like for the future, but I think there's a lot of us that don't miss the pace that we used to be running at, okay, et cetera. And then what things are they missing? What do they wish that they could be part of as a family that they can't be? And what are the things that they've discovered in this season that they hope carries over? If we as a group of churches, if we as a church staff can get the right questions, can figure out what are people wondering about, the solution will solve itself. You are smart people. We have smart people all around us. But if we can really identify what are the tensions that people are living with, the things that they don't miss, the things that they do, the things they want to carry over, I think that's going to be the best way to inform what the future is. And we don't know, will we go to shorter term groups? Will we go to longer term groups? Will we go to more digital environments? I believe the best way to learn all that is just double down on our listening.
So, Bo, as you say that, and the idea of listening, I love that. And I do think that's something that we have done a better job of digitally because of the vulnerability piece. We're all in this same thing together. So we have this shared experience of being at home. But how will you go about doing that? Will that be, and I think, how will it look different between, say, your leaders, group members, and then all those people who aren't in groups yet? So what could that listening look like?
Like, what are we going to do in the next month to do some of that listening?
Yeah. How do you plan on, what could that look like? How do you plan on doing that?
Okay, so the paint is like not even dry. We were just talking about this morning, so don't quote me on it.
Do we even know the color of the paint is the question.
No, we don't. But somebody has commented on the color of my book, so thank you for noticing that sort of weird thing that we do. Okay, here's my thought, is that I never really trust a survey to give me information, but I trust a survey to give me great questions. And so we are going to send a survey to some parents, to singles, and try to segment out at least that way. And then we hope a survey gives us an idea of what people predict they're going to be willing to do and what we can do to help people grow in their relationship with Jesus. So then our hope is to take each segment and do, again, a listening tour, to get on Zoom with people and just let them unpack and unearth what are they hoping for. I talked to a good friend. There's just something about happens when you get in a conversation, somebody says something, you're like, that's it. I was talking to my friend, and he was talking about this season. And he said, you know what, Bo? I don't miss the production, but I really miss the connection. And that just stuck with me of there is something that when we come back, the more we can create authentic environments for people to connect, the better. Now, I work in groups. Of course, I'm going to say that. I'm not saying production is bad. But what are ways we could explore that right now to create for our church, maybe smaller size gatherings or more Facebook community for people to pray together, or opportunities for volunteers in different areas to be able to stay connected.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, we've definitely had the opportunity to try some new things. So as we think again about this new normal, and some of the questions that have come in and around, okay, what is a strategy or pathway for moving someone who's watching online to engaging and joining a digital group or a future in-person group? So, I think that we all are very thankful that our church is moved online these days. And so we still have the ability to connect and be, church isn't a building, you know what I mean? And we've really had the opportunity to prove that. But we also are probably all kind of wondering how many people are going to stay at home and watch church versus come to the church building, So that's kind of a fear that we have, which, that's legit. I honestly like watching it in my comfy clothes from my couch. And I work on staff, so just being honest there. But how could we, going forward, help people connect from that online watching to connecting in some type of a circle, whether digital or in person? What could that look like? What are y'all thinking about?
I think Jace had asked a question about how do we even do that now? Because we have first-time guests that, first-time guests before they walked through the door, they filled out a connection card or something for their kid, or you knew who they were. They might have gone to your guest services table. Well, now a first-time guest might have had a 1-minute view on your Facebook Live, or they might have watched online for the first time. And we are all wrestling with what is the equivalent of somebody walking in the door, shaking our hand, and us saying, let me walk you to the preschool environment, or let me tell you about small groups, or tell you more about Starting Point. And I think that the easiest way that we've thought about that is through emails. And I don't know what your systems look like. The systems part of it is where my head can kind of get spinny. But what would it look like to just set a goal for yourself of saying, we're going to hope to collect X number of new emails in this season, and help those people individually take steps. And maybe if your church has 10,000 of those new ones, well, you might need to create a few pathways. But if it's 110, maybe you could call them or email them and do what Home Depot does so well that we've stolen from, of just say, I'm not just going to point something out to you. I'm going to either walk you there or I'm going to explain it as, clearly as I can. And then when we come back, people are going to need relationships. People have always needed relationships. And I hope what this does is I hope that we try some new things. I love innovation. I love pioneering. I also hope for us as pastors and leaders, we have the discipline to return to what is core, and maybe to cut some things that we were doing that were fun to try or that worked in the last season, but to return to the core, which we believe is relationships. So that's my thought about that. Nikki asked, are we capturing those new emails? We are, yes. It's as simple as if you have a Facebook page, just put something on your website that says, I'm new here. I don't want to miss out. I want to have, I don't want to miss out on new information. Go ahead, Tracy or Alicia. I don't know who I interrupted there.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, one thought on the digital connection cards too, and even on Facebook, of the idea of if someone comments on Facebook, it's like send them a private message of, hey, how can I be praying for you? And start a connection that way, because they're putting themselves out there and saying, hey, I'm willing to post something on Facebook, and you can direct message them to start a conversation. So I know that takes a lot of time, but it's also personal. And I think that's one thing that has been really fun and exciting for us, of getting to, people think of North Point as a big church, and we are a big church, but I do feel like during this season, we have got to be very personal with people and truly care for them, which has been awesome. But Bo, going back to what you just said.
Yeah, I asked Tracy if I could do this on this call. She said no. I was hosting a Facebook Live. I'm not going to do it, Tracy, don't worry. I was hosting a Facebook Live prayer gathering. We were praying. And I said, you know what, if you want to follow up with me about this, here's my cell phone number. And I just gave out my cell phone number, and I got a call from a guy in Florida who's stuck in his apartment and wrestling with previous issues that he's trying to want somebody to pray with him. Like, this is amazing. We would have never done this before, or just had that individual connection with folks in that way.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Tracy, you were talking about the personal connection. One of the things that we did that I loved, we decided we were going to call as many people as we could from our church to check on them. And we were just calling to say, hey, we want you to know we're thinking about you. Do you have any needs? How can we be praying for you? I would say we connected with about 30% of the people we called. We left a lot of messages, and that's okay. And we would get responses back through our website or various ways to say, hey, thanks for calling and checking on me. The ones we were able to have conversations with, it was so life-giving. And when you were talking about people feeling like they are being cared for in this season and to be cared for by their church, I cannot express that personal connection, how far it went. And it was tremendous that most of the people that we talked to did not have any needs. So it was like best case scenario that we were able to connect with them, tell them we were thinking about them, we wanted to check on them. And they said, hey, we're doing okay. And then the ones that have needs, we are working to figure out how we can come alongside them and fill the needs that we can fill. So I would just encourage everybody as much as you can. You're not probably going to be able to call every single person who you have information for at your church, but call the ones you can. So,
yeah, that's awesome. And I know for some of our partner churches, they have called everybody, started with kind of elderly and then kind of gone to, different levels of people. And so that has been, I love just that personal care. and being the hands and feet of Jesus, in this time. So that's awesome. Well, Bo, going back to a moment ago, you were kind of saying, hey, in the new normal, I'd love for us to keep what's core. What would you define as core? And you said that as relationship, but what does that really look like? And I know it's all squishy and we don't know exactly, but if we're going to talk about core, it feels like that is something that we should have a little bit more knowledge of.
My primary role is more staff facing than volunteer facing. So let me see if I can answer that two ways. We have incredible, like you do, incredible staff. And what they want to do is what Paul talks about. They want to use their gifts to give ministry away. And they want to be able to come alongside, and my friend Doug Hurley says, equip, enlist, and encourage leaders. And if we are only doing that, equipping, encouraging, and enlisting new leaders, I think we're doing great. If we're not starting new podcasts, if we're not hosting amazing trainings, if we're not preparing the next talk that we're going to do, if we don't have any email strategy, if we are just locked in on you've never met somebody who feels over-encouraged, encourage your leaders, equip them to win at what they're doing, and then keep enlisting new leaders. I think that's what's core for us as church staff. And then the way that I think that we do that, when you hire great people who care about their leaders, they intuitively do this. They invest in relationships. They want to get on the phone. They miss being face-to-face with their volunteers. Some of you have coaching models, and so you can't do this all yourself, but you have coaches who do it. And I just believe that is what, that's that thing. If you were stranded on a desert island, what would you take? Well, if we could only do a quarter of what we were doing, what would we do? It's become very clear to us at Buckhead Church, what we would do is invest in relationships. We would just be dialed in with our volunteers because they are the ones who are pastoring our church. They are the ones who are leading people closer to Jesus. That's my thought. You can tell I care about it a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, and I love that. And I think just by investing in the leaders, then that flows through them to their community, to their neighborhood, to their workplace, and to all the people that are around them. And so, yeah, it's like using your influence to influence the leaders or the coaches, and then it just trickles down from there. So that's great. Alicia, how about you? Is there anything kind of as we can start to wrap up here in a few minutes, any thoughts that are going on in your head that you want to share?
We're just trying to look for new ways to help people take a step. If the vision for our church is to create a church that unchurched people love to attend, then moving them along a continuum of even giving us a shot to show up on a Sunday, if they're willing to watch a Facebook Live or to watch a video that was shared on Facebook and then take a step to watch us online and then eventually take a step to join us on a Sunday, we're looking for these incremental steps instead of it just being, okay, come on Sunday, get into a long-term group. That's our hope for everyone because we believe that that's how we grow spiritually, is to be connected with other people who are pursuing a growing relationship with Jesus. But how do we offer incremental steps for people? And that's what we're thinking through to make it accessible and to figure out where can we add value in their life so that they will be open to following Jesus. So I know that's really broad, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the idea of where we can add value, it seems like for adults, it's that what do they need now? And so how can we help them now to take a step to, and that step will often, our goal is that it will lead to connection with other people as well.
Tracy, there were a couple questions on the Q&A I thought I might just answer briefly if we have time.
Sure.
There were some questions about volunteer burnout, and I think a few things about what we continue doing. So my wiring is, again, let's pioneer, let's try it. And what I've been reminded of, and even it's shown up in the chat, is, we probably still innovate best if we crawl, then walk, then run. And if we try to do everything, we are going to burn out ourselves, and we're going to burn out our staff, and we're going to burn out our volunteers. And so you heard me say we're trying 17 digital groups. For our size, that probably worked, but you could try one. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't have to try going to do everything. In fact, if you do, we're surely going to burn out. We borrow ideas from Jim Collins in that book, Great by Choice, where he talks about just go on a 20-mile march, a consistent, steady plodding. My staff is wondering, how many volunteers should I be reaching out to every week? Is it 50? Is it 5? It's whatever the pace is that you can maintain from now to August. Because what the world needs is you as a wholehearted, healthy leader, ready, back in the saddle when this thing is over.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I think that idea of self-care, of you can only give out what you've got. And so you have to take care of yourself for you to be able to pastor and care for others. So yeah, that's a great reminder. And I love just that concept of, I know I often tell churches as I'm talking to them, it's like, hey, think quality over quantity. So like you said, is hearing the number of digital groups that we're launching, that's irrelevant to any other church but us. So for each individual church, it's kind of going, okay, what is best for our church context? What could that look like? What should it look like? And just kind of focusing on the quality that you're trying, not on the quantity of ideas that you have. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, good. Well, everyone, we are so grateful for you joining us today. It has been wonderful. It's been fun to see the chat, and I love that so many of you guys are able to relate to each other. I think something like this is just such a reminder of we're not in this alone, and we are all, our goal is the same, of we want people to know Jesus and to grow with him. So, and just to be connected with each other. So, I don't know about y'all, but I'm encouraged of kind of going, hey, there's all these people around the country and probably outside of our country too, that are listening, that know what we're going through. And we're all like, yes, we're trying to figure it out. And I hope that you heard from us, if we don't have it figured out, obviously we're still in the middle of it. And like Bo said, the paint isn't dry, and I'm like, hey, do we even know the color of the paint right now? I don't know. But hey, we'll keep you posted as we go. So, but just to let you know, next week at 1:00 on Wednesday, we'll be doing another webinar. So keep a lookout for an email for that, and we'd love to see you back. And also, if you have any more questions, feel free to check out regroup.org for additional information. So, and again, just thanks for being with us today. I know we loved getting to be here, and just grateful for your questions and for your interactions. So love what you guys are doing, and just keep doing it. So thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.